Nitro with the nice flow. Y'all acting like y'all don't know. Stop acting like y'all don't know.
Joe Campbell.
Who the future? We the future. Who the future? Us. Who the future? We the future. Who the future? Us. Causing chaos in the back of the bus. Get your hands up. We gon' show you how we buzz. Yeah. The future.
There we go. Can you hear me now? I just had a spiel there. Welcome, everybody, to the Shark and the Gun Knowledge for College show. I am Guns Picks. That's what happens when you do things live. You mess up a little bit. I am here rocking the glasses, rocking the shades, rocking the ND hat as always. Hopefully you are joining us. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching us right now. What a beautiful slate that we have for the College Football Week 14 edition. It is conference championships. It is bittersweet that it's all ending. But we have a full slate of Saturday. We got a couple games on Friday. And we also got bowl season coming up as well, which is a whole different animal in itself. Seeing Free Mind in the chat. What up, Guns? No sound. Yes, I know. I fixed it. I had, for some reason, it muted my mic when I put the intro in there, but I got that fixed. Foolish Hound joining me. What's going on, girl? How you doing? Going into this slate, I have a game tonight. I want to make sure I get into that. But first, if you haven't subscribed to the Dad Bods YouTube channel, please do so right now and hit the like button to this video and spread the word. Even if you're watching this on Twitter. If you're watching this on Twitter, then I can't see the chats, guys. So make sure you join us on YouTube and retweet this stream because I'm going to give a pick tonight, and I'm going to give I got 5 plays, I believe, for the college football championships edition. Exactly in the chat. What's going on, buddy? I have to catch you on the recording. No problem, buddy. All right. Let's start with the Friday game. Let's start with 8 o'clock Eastern Central Time, and we're talking about Utah and USC. And I did talk about this on the Dad Bods podcast yesterday, but if you missed it, I'm going to talk about it right now. USC, to me, it baffles me. Them and TCU in the position that they're in, I just feel like they're the luckiest teams on the planet. The luck factor for them, if you're calculating that, is through the roof. USC coming off back-to-back wins, huge wins, by the way. So they've gone through an absolute gauntlet. They beat UCLA by 3, and they beat Notre Dame by 11, their rival. Now they're going to go into a neutral field to go and play Utah in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. But Utah is coming off what I consider a bye week when you play Colorado, 63-21 on the road, plus 447 net yard average in that regard. Both of these teams met in week 7. If you don't know that, it was a great game. Utah did win the game 43-42. Dead even in net yard. These two teams really play up with one another, very competitive, which leads me to believe that taking the dog in this situation is probably the direction that you want to go. USC defense struggles stopping the run. They allow 5.1 yards per carry to their opponents. And they've been exposed to the pass lately that I've noticed. Over 300 yards or more passing to their opponents in 5 out of their last 6 games, folks. So this is not a good USC defense at all whatsoever. So I think Utah is going to expose them here. And also, let's just check. Let's check out the splits here. Utah versus conference opponents. Plus 16 point differential, plus 115 net yard average. USC versus conference opponents, plus 11 point differential, plus 93 net yard average. Last 4 games, too. Granted, Utah has played lesser competition, so take that into account. Plus 25 point differential, plus 209 net yard average, where USC plus 15-point differential, plus 121 net yard average. Utah has also been in this spot before. They've been here in 2021. They didn't have a championship in 2020. They were there in 2019, 2018. They lost them all, granted, but the experience factor is still there. This is USC's new territory. Granted, Lincoln Riley and some of his boys have been in conference championship before, Jordan Addison being in the championship last year as well. So take that into account. I just think this Utah team matches up very well with USC, so they could make some stops on offense, whereas USC with Cameron Rising and the offensive arsenal that Utah brings to the table, I just think this is a better team. I think Utah finally gets over the hump and wins a conference championship here against an opponent that is playing for their college football playoff lives. A lot of pressure on this USC team. A little too much pressure, in my opinion. So I'm going to be going with Utah +3. And this is not one, not two, a 3-unit special, baby. So go with it, take it, run it to the bank, and then we'll run it into Saturday. Let's go. All right, next play up for debate. Kansas State and TCU. Yes, another team that has really boggled my mind, the TCU Horned Frogs. They are probably more lucky than USC. The way that they win games, the way they cover games, it's absolutely remarkable. Yes, I got burnt when they played West Virginia on the road. I didn't get burned when they played Baylor, though. I did take Baylor. Granted, they didn't win the game, but they did cover the spread. This is a team that baffles me altogether. Granted, Sonny Dykes has done a great job with this team. I'll give him that. But I think he has hit the end of the road with this Kansas State team. And, ladies and gentlemen, let's put the Notre Dame hat to a side. And let's get the bye hat on, baby. Because we're rolling with Kansas State on this one. Kansas State is coming off a 47-27 win over Kansas, rival, plus 136 net yards. TCU absolutely destroying Iowa State at home, 62-14. But it was really shocking on this one, plus 42 net yards for the game, but they had a +3 turnover ratio. Still a very high score and a high spread on that one, considering they didn't really dominate the net yards. Kansas State has and these two teams have played each other. If you know anything about this game, TCU did beat them at home 38-28, winning the net yards battle by 105 net yards. But in this game, it was pretty crazy if you actually watch it. Kansas State was up 28-10 at one point in the second quarter before losing. They lost their quarterback in the first series with Adrian Martinez, and they have a solid backup in Will Howard. Will Howard is going to be the starter in this game, by the way. Pocket passer, very crisp, runs a different style of offense, but it's going to leave them a little bit more balanced and kind of give TCU some guessing games on this one. And he was doing well in the game against TCU. Unfortunately, Kansas State couldn't score again after Will Howard got hurt. They go and put the third backup in. He throws a pick six. They're going to put Will Howard in there hurt, and he just didn't play the same in that game. But now you got Will Howard, a healthy Will Howard, in a big revenge spot in this one. I like the spot. So if you actually look at Will Howard, he was 13 for 20, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT in that game prior to the injury. But since then, he's 4-0 as a starter. So you have this starter that he's well rested, he's well prepared. He's not just jumping into the game this time. He's going to be ready to go versus a TCU team that looking for revenge here. So a TCU different team on the road than they are at home. That's a fact. Granted, they're playing in a neutral site. It's still treated like a road game to me for TCU. +9 point differential on the road, +13 net yard average. A lot of close games, a lot of squeakers for them on the road. But when they're at home, they just absolutely dominate. That's just how TCU plays. The defense also struggles stopping the pass on the road, giving up 279 yards per game passing, 58.2% pass completion rate. So this kind of plays a little bit into the strength of what Kansas State is going to want to do in this game. Will Howard is more of a passing quarterback. Like I said before, 62.9% completion rate, 9.3 yards per attempt, 13 touchdowns, 2 INTs. They averaged 264 yards per game passing in the last 4 games, and that's because of Will Howard. Will the dog Howard, as we show, or the cat. We're talking about the Wildcats here. Kansas State has won 3 straight prior to this year's matchup versus TCU, and they've covered 6 out of the last 8 matchups. And also, if you want to go into a little bit of the totals here for trends, the under is 5-1 in the last 6 matchups. So, like I said, TCU coming into this game, playing for their college football playoff lives. Maybe we'll see what the committee thinks about this one. Coming in way too red hot versus a Kansas State team that really matched up to them well and absolutely proved that they can actually dominate this team, especially at TCU for that matter. Play the fight song for me, folks. The way I'm going to go with this play, folks, Kansas State plus 2.5 units. Salt Bay, the money line, plus 116 as well for 1.5 units. That's right. This is a 4-unit play for me. This is my favorite play of the Saturday of the conference championships. Take it to the bank, folks. That's right. Kansas State plus 2.5 and Kansas State money line plus 116 is going to be the play. Boom, bang, pow. Woo. Let's check the comments here for a second. Kansas State, look at this one. Don PLA coming in the chat. Kansas State was up like 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I just explained that, dude. That's what I'm talking about. Hope to see you at pub tonight. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I got to see how I'm feeling tonight. I really got a big bet on USC, so I would be sweating that one. Let's go into I want to talk about some of these other games. I'm going to I'm going to do this a little bit differently tonight because we do have a small card. I'm not going to give you official plays on every single game, but I will give you my opinions on it like I normally do on a Saturday morning. So let's go into the MAC Conference Championship. Played in, I think, Detroit, Motor City. We have Toledo going against Ohio, 12 p.m. Eastern time. This game's a little bit weird for a couple reasons. Listen, I know Ohio, the Bobcats are coming in here red hot, dominating their conference. They've just done a great job all season, especially as of late. They've been showing up as dogs. They've been just dominating teams. Toledo on the other side, kind of playing flat at the back end of the season to get into the spot. Granted, they've been playing with the injury bug with Finn, with the QB. When he's in the game, they play their best ball. But when he's not in the game, even when he's playing with that injury that he's been dealing with, he's kind of been playing a little bit flat. On the other side, though, unfortunately, with Ohio, they lose arguably the best player in the MAC in Rourke, the quarterback. And he's been their entire heartbeat, the soul of the offense, the driver of the momentum of that team. So you're dealing with an Ohio team that has to go play with a quarterback that has less than a 50% pass completion rate. He has a little bit more mobility. He can use his legs a little bit more in the run game. So that kind of changes the dynamic of the offense. So if there's an edge, maybe from a preparation standpoint, you may lean Ohio on this one. But as long as Finn is going to play in this game, I haven't looked at the updated injury report to see if he is or he isn't. But I know Rourke is out completely because he tore his ACL. So I guess from my perspective, if I had to pick one play on this one, I'd probably lean Toledo. There's a couple key factors that are keeping me out of this one. The quarterback dual threat option kind of shifting the dynamic of the offense may give Toledo fits. And also when you look at dogs in the MAC games, I think they're 12-2 against the spread in the last 14 or something like that. I read a stat about that. I looked that up. But typically the dog usually prevails in these games no matter what. So it's nothing that I really want to play on this one. Because I just really have question marks as far as who's going to be taking the snaps on both teams. So if there's a stay away game, this is probably the one you want to stay away from. All right, moving on to another game here. We got the SEC championship, lackluster as it is. Last year you had Bama and Georgia, a better matchup in my opinion, and a good spot to take Bama that we did last year. LSU versus UGA. Now, The line is creeping. I think it opened at 15. It's creeping up to 17, maybe 18 at this point. Who knows what it's going to be by kickoff? Jalen Daniels, limping around in a walking boot for that matter. You don't know about the health of him. The whole sole source of his strength is mobility and running the football and taking advantage of defenses. Playing maybe a little bit too deep on the pass or maybe playing in the zone and just moving the football in that manner. If he's got a bad foot injury and he's not going to be 100%, it makes me want to lean the Georgia Bulldogs in this one. I know really Georgia, you would think that they probably don't have much to play for in this one. They're sitting at number 1 in the college football playoff position. But it's a little bit different feeling for me that, Kirby Smart, I think he's going to want to play up on this game. The line is kind of telling you that in that manner too. I think after losing the way they lost to Bama in the SEC championship last year, winning the national championship for that matter, I don't know. If I was a coach, I would still feel a little bit crossed on that one, that I was like, how come I can win the national championship, but I can't win my own conference? And maybe he comes out here and he just really gasses them early, pounds the ball, gets that defense rolling, really puts pressure on Daniels. LSU just came off a loss to Texas A&M. So that kind of makes me lean that maybe the fire in LSU maybe fizzled out at this point because they're not in contention of making a college football playoff. So maybe the team probably more unmotivated in this one would be LSU, in my opinion. So if there's any lean on this one, I don't want to take UGA first half on this one because for some reason, last year they were just red hot in the first half and they just kind of took the foot off the gas pedal. But this team's a little bit different this year. They're a little bit more slower pace, and they kind of pick things up in the second half after adjustments. So lean on this one, probably UGA for the game. No opinion on the total. All right, let's go into an official play. So I have an official play on the AAC championship that is going to be played in Nolens, Louisiana. I have it here on my sheet. 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's right. A rematch, folks. UCF versus Tulane. What an amazing matchup for this one. Tulane, Willie Fritz. I applaud the guy. He had his back against the wall, possibly in a position where he could have lost his job. I think he's done plenty to keep his job. This offense has been humming. The defense has been cooking for this team. They're running red hot, and now the public is starting to notice that too. So my position on this one, well, let me tell you what my position on this one is going to be. That's right, folks. I'm rolling with the black and gold on this one. UCF, doesn't matter to me what the line is. I got it at +4.5. I think it's sitting at +3.5 right now. Still like it. Might as well sprinkle on the money line. Keep it above the 3, though, if you want to be precautionary. UCF coming into this game. Relatively flat past couple of weeks, given. They lost to Navy 17-14. They just beat UCF, but really didn't play that well. 46-39 plus 109 net yards in that game. TCU is coming off back-to-back wins. Wins that they had to win. So they've basically been playing 3 playoff games in a row, in my opinion. SMU, they just dominated 59-24 at home. Then last week they played for their playoff lives against the team that could be in this spot if they lost the game. Cincy, 27-24, clinching their spot in the conference championship. However, if you actually look to see who played in that game, it wasn't the starting quarterback for Cincinnati. No, they went with the backup, Prater. And to put a backup in that position versus a good Tulane defense, it was a lot closer than I expected it to be, honestly. And seeing that kind of put me in a position that maybe we should be rolling with UCF once again. UCF has known they are in this game since their win versus Tulane, 38-31, and that is a fact. It's like since they beat Tulane, They knew they were in full position. They beat Cincinnati prior. There was no other team that could really beat them in a tiebreaker. So they've been resting starters off and on. You can actually see it in the reps. John Reese Plumlee has kind of been banged up a little bit, so resting him in preparation for this game was vital for the success in this one, which tells me that UCF is prepared to go and dominate this Tulane team. And Tulane has played for their championship lives week to week. We talked about that. Listen, UCF, there's no question what they want to do. They want to run the ball and to set up the pass, right? They average 243 yards per game on the ground, 5.5 yards per carry. This is the first match. In the first matchup versus Tulane, they absolutely dominated the run. They put up 336 yards on the ground, 6.2 yards per carry versus Tulane. This is a team that knows they can run against Tulane, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to jam it down your throat. UCF versus conference opponents too. Let's do a comparison here. Plus 10-point differential, plus 105 net yard average versus conference opponents. Tulane versus conference opponents, plus 11-point differential, but plus 19 net yards. So really, from a yardage perspective, UCF does dominate versus conference opponents, right? Also, you got to look at the situation between these two teams. The underdog is 6-1 against the spread in this matchup. UCF was an underdog in the last game as well. And the home team has lost 3 straight, Tulane being the home team in this one. No, they don't play on a neutral field. They actually have to play home versus away. And Tulane is actually sitting in the top seed right now. Tremendous season for Tulane. I can give it to them. They had their foot on the gas pedal all the way to this spot, even through Cincinnati. But I think they're going to hit a roadblock with this UCF team that in big games versus conference opponents, they have shown to step up. And I'm going to trust that team. I'm going to trust John Reese Plumlee. I'm going to trust the UCF offense to go and get the W here. Gus Malzahn, go grab that trophy for the ACC championship. But I'm only going to be taking them on the number. I'm not going to be taking them on the money line because I am going to just play the number here. Either way, I think it's going to be a close game. Give me UCF plus 4.5, and that is for 2.5 units. Okay. Now we're going into the dirty of the dirty here, the Mountain West Conference Championship with Fresno State versus Boise State. I don't think I have made a play on any games featuring Fresno State since the USC game when they took out my guy, Jake Haener. Jake Haener's back for this one, okay? And since he's been back, they've had 7 straight wins. They're coming off a win over Wyoming, 30-0, complete shutout. But they're playing a Boise team on the blue turf here. Boise's won 7 out of their last 8 games, including a 42-23 win at home versus Utah State, despite having a minus 40 net yard average for that game. Maybe there's some regression there. We'll see how it goes. Fresno State lost to Boise State in week 6, 40-20. As 10.5 point favorites. Okay. Boise did win the net yards battle, 210 yards, net yards for that game. But most of this was due to the fact that Fresno State lost their stud quarterback in Jake Haener. Jake Haener did not play in that game. In those games, I think they were 0-3 straight up. So taking into account this game, you have to take it with a grain of salt here. This is without Jake Haener, Fresno State is completely lost. The quarterback Fife is remedial at best. I think he used to play at UNLV. He was a backup there as well. If you're a backup at UNLV, you still stink. But Fresno loves to air it out. We know that. 74.5% completion rate, 296 yards per game. Jake Haener throws for 8.5 yards per attempt, 17 touchdowns, 3 INTs. And despite missing 4.5 games this season. So he's actually put up some really big numbers, but it kind of looks small. But you have to understand, I thought he was out for the season, and all of a sudden he made that comeback. This just shows the toughness in this kid. Also, Boise have been absolutely gashed versus passing teams. They gave up 292 yards passing to Oregon State. They gave up 377 yards passing to BYU. And last week, they gave up 306 yards passing to Utah State. So when they play a passing team, they do have fits. You have to understand that Boise has gone through some massive transitions this year. They fired their coach. Their quarterback, Bachmeier, goes to the transfer portal. They do find some talent with a mobile quarterback and really focus a little bit more on the run. I can give them that, and that actually changed their season. But going into a championship style game versus a good Fresno State team, a Fresno State team that has a plus 27 point differential, plus 110 net yard average in their last 4 games, where Boise is plus 14 point differential, plus 51 in their last 4 games. And they've really played the same competition because they're just playing in conference games. Granted, one out of conference game for Boise State that lost to BYU. Also, look at the matchup on this one. Every time these teams meet, the underdog is 8-1 against the spread in the last 9 meetings, and the home team is 3-6 against the spread in the last 9 as well. Revenge spot for Fresno State. Jake Haener playing with a chip on his shoulder, want to prove himself to a generally big audience, and in a position versus a Boise's team that, to me, I'll applaud them. They did play very well this season, but they're still building the foundation of what was left from the previous coach and the previous quarterback. So that being said, I love what Dirk Cutter's doing, but I got to be going with my guy, Jake Haener. Give me Fresno plus 3.5, 2.5 unit special, and we're going to sprinkle that on the money line as well. So I'm not only going to be taking for a unit, so I'm going to be taking 2.5 unit play on Fresno State plus 3.5 and sprinkle on the money line as well. All right, moving on to the night slate. Purdue versus Michigan. This is an interesting one because Michigan is in a different position than they were last year in the Big Ten Championship. They are undefeated this time. Last year, they had that one loss, correct? Okay, so they couldn't afford another loss. They're playing a Purdue team that I was actually surprised looking at the stats. Really played a solid back half of the season, putting them in a position here. O'Connell with the passing game, actually moving the ball down the field. Did a great job. Michigan, on the other hand, a lot of stuff has happened to them this week. They found out Blake Corum's not going to be playing for the rest of the season. He's got season-ending knee surgery. He tried to play in the Ohio State game, couldn't do it. And you can say what you want about the what happened in that game, but a lot of but Michigan had a lot of big plays that kind of predicated into what was considered a blowout win for Michigan. But Purdue is sitting in the spot, maybe a little bit motivated here against a team that's going to get in the college football playoff. I don't think Michigan win, lose, or draw. It doesn't really matter because I think they still got a spot in here. They're sitting nestled at number 2, and the teams below them, I think at least one of them are going to lose. And then you may even see Ohio State kind of peek their ugly head in there and sneak into a spot, depending on the committee. I can only project my opinion on it. But this number is egregiously high, in my opinion. I think, sitting here at plus 16, plus 17, to me, I just don't think Michigan is going to be as motivated as they were last week versus their rival, beating them back-to-back years, going against Purdue team. With a little bit of motivation, a little bit more gusto. Last year they did dominate the Big Ten championship, but they played an Iowa team that was very banged up on the defensive side of the ball and had zero offense like they did this year. Purdue's in a different spot. Purdue can actually put points on you. Purdue can keep it close. I think if I had a lean on this one, it's not an official play, I would probably take Purdue. Just the fact that I don't know why Jim Harbaugh would waste his starters in a situation where he needs them more in the college football playoff than he needs them in this game. This is more of an exhibition practice to me, and that's how they should be treating it. But you never know what their motivation on this is. Losing their top star has got to pretty much ring a bell in your head. It's like, listen, we can't take any more risks. We can't take any more chances. We need to maybe play them the first half and maybe trying to ease up and use our depth and get them some playing time. I could see that happening and then have a Purdue backdoor kind of situation. Last game on the board, The ACC championship. Okay. Wow. The ACC really dropped off the tabletop, didn't they? As far as their strength, there's nothing more boring than this game, in my opinion. Clemson versus UNC. The emergence of Drake May as the Lord and Savior of UNC. We'll see. He played very bad in the last. He's played awful in the last couple of weeks. He definitely played bad against his rival in NC State. That game went into overtime. An NC State team that is so banged up and so lost altogether. For them to lose to them is kind of a letdown, in my opinion. Now they got to go into a championship game that I'm so shocked that they're even in this game. But the weakness of the ACC has just been bad. Clemson on the other side, losing again to a non-conference opponent, South Carolina, losing by a point. Just played arguably one of their worst games of the year. You could say maybe Notre Dame would have been like that as well. I don't know. I don't think South Carolina is a very good team either. But what I have noticed is when Clemson plays teams in their sandbox, meaning when they play teams inside their conference, Clemson's a different team. Clemson dominates teams in their conference. I think they're 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 conference games. Okay. They're playing a UNC team that plays zero defense. You have a quarterback in Drake May that really kind of playing flat lately, kind of regressing. Granted, they're going to be playing against a Clemson team that has been exposed badly in the secondary. But a ton of weapons on the UNC side. I don't know if Drake May is going to be ready for this spot. I really don't. The line's sitting, I think I saw a 7 out there. If I had to have a take, I would probably take Clemson, but I wouldn't take it above the 7. I would try to look for a 6.5. I'd probably look for a 7. I can see Clemson winning this game by at least a possession. Clemson is in shambles. I get that. But I think when their backs against the wall, at least historically, we did see it last year when everybody thought that Clemson was going to lose their bowl game last year. They stepped up at the opportunity and dominated. So I will not back Clemson and take UNC no matter what. I mean, it to me it just screams taking Clemson in this spot, especially what happened to them last week. I think there's going to be a retaliation in the loss that they had, and kind of put themselves in a better position for a better bowl game. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they'll get into the New Year's Six, and that's where the coaching staff for Clemson, Dabo Sweeney, that's where they want to be to kind of set themselves up for next year. All right, so I went down the board, every single game that is going to be played tomorrow for conference championships. To recap, we're going with a game that's starting right now. So if you joined late, my apologies. I'm going with Utah +3, Kansas State +2.5, and the money line +116. We're going with, forgot to talk about a game, and I forgot to put it on the board. Let's talk about it right now. Coastal Carolina versus Troy. Troy, great defense, and they've been absolutely electric in the last 9 games. Okay, they lost in dramatic fashion to App State, which really crushed their dreams a little bit. It was, what did they call it, the Miracle in Boone or something like that. Hail Mary throw last second, 32-28, losing to App State. But since then, they've been absolutely steamrolling teams. All right, and it's all with their defense. Coastal Carolina on the other side, bad loss last week. JMU 47-7, just got crushed in the net yards too, -319 net yards. This is more predicated on the fact that Grayson McCall did not play in this game, the heartbeat of Coastal Carolina. And he's still up in the air if he's going to play or not. He's dealing with a foot injury, I believe, and probably leaning towards not playing this game. Everything that I've read, he's not playing this game, but keep it monitored as we get close to kickoff. So they got this quarterback named Jarrett Guess is going to be their starter. He has a 44.2% pass completion rate, 1 touchdown, 4 INTs. If Grayson McCall ain't playing, it's a complete hammer for Troy Trojans here. And I said, Troy has got a great defense. They hold their opponents to 269 yards per game at home, 54.3 pass completion rate, 2.8 yards per carry on the ground, 160 yards per game passing. This is a great defense, absolutely dominating their conference. Also, Troy has a plus 12 point differential at home and a plus 10 point differential versus conference opponents. So it gets above this number, which is sitting at -8 right now in this championship game. Colts of Carolina on the road, -1 point differential, minus 54 net yard average. But take that with a little bit of a grain of salt because they got dominated so bad on the road versus JMU. Is kind of skewing the numbers a little bit. But I want to give a better comparison of why I'm looking at Troy here. So if you actually look at their schedule, they've played one really good defense this year. Okay. They played at Marshall. Granted, they did win that game 24-13, but they only put up 271 yards of total offense, 121 yards passing. And that was with Grayson McCall in the lineup. And from a comparison standpoint, total defense ranking, Marshall's ranked 10th in the country in total defense, where Troy's ranked number 16. So there's a small degree of separation as far as the defense is concerned, but that just leads me to believe whether Grayson McCall's playing or Jarrett Guest is playing at quarterback tomorrow, I'm going to be taking Troy because Troy just knows how to stop whatever Coastal Carolina is doing. Also, look at the key matchups here. Coastal Carolina 2-5 against the spread in the last 7 games. Troy has also covered all 9 of their 9 straight wins on this winning streak. Coastal Carolina is also 1-4 against spread versus Troy in the last 5 meetings. So it doesn't matter to me if Grayson McCall plays or he doesn't play. I'm going to trust this Troy defense. I'm going to trust the streak. I'm going to trust everything that Troy is doing. They're just running red hot. Also, if you actually look at the coach for Coastal Carolina and Chadwell, a lot of rumors stirring around about him going on and moving on to Liberty of all places. Can't figure out that move other than Liberty being an independent. Maybe he can swing a few better competitive games to make more money. I know Liberty does have deep pockets out there, but this is a weird move. And I think this may kind of affect the dynamic and the psychological analysis of the team, where I'm not sure if Coastal Carolina, the team themselves, are ready to play for their coach, if he's just going to be moving on from them. So with all that being said, I'm going to be rolling with Troy -8. And this is at 3:30 Eastern time on Saturday, 2-unit special. And that's going to do it for the podcast. To recap, I'm going Utah +3 that's playing right now. Kansas State +2.5. And the money line +116. I'm going with Troy -8, 2-unit. And I'm going with Fresno State +3.5. And the money line, whatever that is right now, for 1 unit. And I'm going with my guys, UCF, for a 2.5-unit special +4.5. Thanks for joining me all season long. I will do a slew. I think it's going to be a slew of college football bowl season plays, videos. And I'm also going to be doing a tips and tricks, what to do, what to not look at. Try to teach you guys a little bit about bowl capping and stuff that I look for. It'll be a little bit of trends. It'll be a little bit of how conferences do versus other conferences, et cetera, et cetera. But thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys so much. Please subscribe to the Dad Bod YouTube channel, whether you're watching this now, you're watching this later. And just thank you again. And I'll be back. We're gonna be full squad on Sunday. It'll be me, Shark, and Ozfellow to run down the NFL Week 13 slate. I got a bunch of bangers on that. Love that card a lot. Just like I love this card. So thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. And as always, let's keep dancing. Go, UCF.